Hello my dear friends, you're on the Military Summary channel, and this short video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous night of the local time. The Ukrainians launched another offensive operation, another Reko in combat to be more precise, in direction of Lugova, this small settlement from the settlement by the name of Lobkova. The Russians are saying that that attack was repelled by the Russians, and probably the Russians were attacking the Ukrainians in their flanks during that attack. If you remember, during the previous weeks, the Ukrainians made an attempt to attack Petykhatki. The Ukrainians were trying to attack Zherebyanki, and the previous day they were trying to attack Lugova. All those attacks were repelled, and the Ukrainians probably have already created a picture and have already got enough of information from this area to start something bigger than they did during the previous week. When talking about Bradley Square or Orekhov Frontline, there were no changes during the previous 24 hours. The Russians are saying that the front line was stable and was calm as never. From the Russian side, they were published a lot of new pictures from the Bradley Square, as you can see on this picture. Like a lot of vehicles were destroyed in the fire, and a lot of vehicles equipped with demining equipment were destroyed as well. And there were a lot of videos, like all these vehicles are Western, from NATO countries, and as you can see, another convoy was destroyed, and so probably this is the reason that Ukrainians took a decision to make a small regrouping in this area. Probably another reason of that Ukrainians wasn't so active in this area is that there were rains all day yesterday, and the ground is currently not have enough quality for using tanks attacks. Probably the Ukrainians are not going to make any attacks within the next few days, because the sources are saying that the next 3 days they're going to be rainy weather. Now let's move to Guliaipole. The Ukrainians launch probably for the first time since the storming operation the first Reko in combat in the vicinity of Drozhnyanka. At the beginning, some Russian sources were saying that that was some kind of another greatest offensive operation, but later we got updated that it was just a regular Reko in combat, and the Ukrainians, after the artillery strike, were forced to step back. The only thing is that the Russians reported that those forces were able to get very close to the Russian positions in Drozhnyanka, and mainly because of fog and bad weather. Now let's move to the Vremyevka tactical bridgehead. As you can see, the Ukrainians continue advancing yesterday, and as a result of fierce fighting all over the front lines, a lot of settlements turned their status into the gray zone. A lot of settlements were captured by the Ukrainians, and at some settlements the Ukrainians' attacks were repulsed and the Ukrainians were forced to step back. As we discussed yesterday, Livadno currently is under complete Ukrainian control, and probably currently they're trying to create more plans and more they're trying to understand what they can do next. Novodarivka, the Russian sources are saying that this settlement is in the gray zone, but if you remember yesterday there was updates that the Russians during the retreat process destroyed the dam in this river, but later we got update that the dam was destroyed in the south of Novodarivka in this area. So probably that dam was destroyed with the same reason, not to allow the Ukrainian forces to continue advancing from the north along the road, and to give the Russians some time to complete regrouping and to evacuate from this bridgehead in direction of Priyutina. Probably Priyutina is going to be the next defense line, at least on the western flank of Vremyevka tactical bridgehead. When talking about the river area, the Russians during the previous 24 hours lost at least 4 settlements: Niskuchne, Blagodatne, Starozhova, and Makarovka. All these settlements were captured by the Ukrainians during the night, and the Russians are saying that the main reason why the Russians were forced to step back was the bad weather and, of course, the fog that appeared on these lands after the end of the rain. Probably the Ukrainians will continue developing their offensive operation, but the Russians sources are saying that this morning of the local time the weather got better, and as soon as the weather normalized, the Russians started bombing and shelling this area using artillery and drones, which they couldn't do during the bad weather, and probably this will force the Ukrainians to stop, to slow down a little bit, and probably to wait some time, because as we discussed, the sources are saying that the weather is going to be bad for the next 3-4 days, and of course this factor will reduce the usage of the Russian the usage of the drones by the Russian and air forces by the Russian side. Anyway, no matter the weather, no matter the situation, now currently we see that the Russians in the settlement by Ravnopol currently appeared in a risk zone, and they need to make a decision what to do next, because from the dam on the west was destroyed. On the east we see that Ukrainians got very close to the supply road, and probably and currently the Ukrainians do have possibilities to establish even fire and probably physical control. So we can say that when talking about particularly about this area, the forces, if there are any forces of Russians in Ravnopol, have appeared in a small operational encirclement, or at least the situation is very close to operational encirclement. Probably if the Russians are not going to start making any counter-offensive operation to the north, trying to restore control over Makarovka, then the Russians will be forced to step back from Rovnopol, and they will have to create another defense line in this area that will go from the settlements probably along this line. So this is going to be something like this if the Russians are not going to relaunch their counter-offensive operation in the direction of Makarovka. So Priutine, then this river, these lakes, and the eastern flank of this bridgehead will be under protection of Staromayorsk and Urozhaine, these two settlements. Anyway, the Ukrainians reported that during the night probably they made some kind of recco in combat in direction of Urozhaine, but that attack was repelled by the Russian forces. Furthermore, the Russians published more video of destroyed Ukrainian forces. For example, in this video we see that Ukrainians managed to accumulate some forces at some area in the vicinity of Blagodatne. They managed to bridge some infantry. Probably they were preparing themselves before the storming operation, but this squad was spotted by the Russian forces, not by the Russians, but mainly this area was under protection of the special unit Cascade. This is the DPR special unit, and they, as you can see, as a result of drone attack, at least one vehicle was destroyed or damaged. Right after that, the Ukrainians took a decision to regroup and to leave these positions, and the destiny of the rest of the force is unknown, but anyway we see that everything was at least at some point under complete Russian control. Furthermore, the Russian published another video a little bit to the south, probably after some kind of advances from the Ukrainian side. The same special unit Cascade published another video how the forces were destroying another Ukrainian personal armored carrier, also using the drones. And to tell the truth, there's a lot of at least misunderstandings from my side. From one side, the Russians are saying that because of bad weather they couldn't use drones and air forces, but from another side we see that they continue publishing videos of the usage of the drones. So anyway, the situation is completely covered with fog of war. Another interesting fact, as we discussed, that mainly these settlements were captured by the, for example, 68th Jaeger Brigade, Tank Brigade, and not with the NATO brigade. So a lot of interesting questions about the situation. Anyway, we see that the Russians continue stepping back, retreating, and this the next 24 hours is going to be very important. Also, the Russians reported that Ukrainians made few recco in combats in direction of Novodonetsk and another recco in combat in direction of Novomayorsk. Those attacks were repelled by the Russians, but anyway, we understand that the Ukrainians also needs to capture the settlement, and they will try, because they have managed to maintain the bridgehead. They managed to shorten the combat line, and currently they can concentrate on the eastern flank of the Vremevka tactical bridgehead, because they also need to capture the settlements that are not in the inside of the first defense belt. So we'll see. Anyway, this is the situation, and that's it for today, for this short video. Military Summary channel reminds to condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.